All right, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. My Streamlabs completely took my mic away, but here we are. We're back for our. We haven't been live in quite a long time here for the Muff Pump podcast, but we are here. We are getting things going. I hope you guys are ready for some 2021 fantasy football action. We're going to talk about the 2021 fantasy football busts. So we've each created our own starting lineup of guys that we believe that if you draft these players, you are more than likely to lose your league. So get your pens and papers out if you haven't done your draft yet. If you have, maybe still get it ready just in case. Maybe you got some guys you need to get on the trade block a little bit sooner than you thought. But we're going to have some fun tonight, and I hope you guys do enjoy. What's up? We got Terry and Paul in the house. How we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Just living the dream. How you doing, Terry?
Doing good. Doing good. Weather in the storm here.
Yeah, man, we've had some wild and crazy weather in our area, so we hope everybody is safe out there. We know a couple towns over from us got hit really, really hard, and some houses were blown apart, so hopefully everybody ends up being okay there. So, yeah, I digress, though. Let's get into some fantasy football and some fun talks. We're going to go through our lineups first. We have one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. But again, that we believe that if you draft these guys, you're likely going to have a hard time winning your league. So I'll start on my first way around, and then you guys can kind of pick and choose as you want to go from there. But for the first one on my list, a guy that I saw go pretty high on the board in a lot of drafts as far as quarterbacks went is Justin Herbert. I feel like we've talked a lot about on the podcast how his lack of overall weapons is going to be a problem this year. Plus, a lot of the NFL's had a whole entire season to kind of see what he's all about, and I think we'll have a chance to game plan around that. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on Justin Herbert on your behalfs, but as you go around, just give us your QB1s as well for your all-bust team.
I like that pick with Herbert because he lost some weapons, and then as soon as you get a year of film and you give defensive coordinators an offseason to plan against it, you're going to struggle. It's just it's natural. So I do think that that's a really good pick. I went with Dak. I think that it's pretty obvious to go with him, but I saw him taken really high in a lot of places. But Dak, he's coming off the ankle that needed surgery to be repaired. He just got paid. Typically, players in their first big year are a little bit down because like, okay, I'm secure. Don't have to worry about it. I've got generational wealth for my family now, unless I do something stupid and go bankrupt, which most of them do. I digress. But his shoulder has been really screwy all year, and a lot of people are saying it's got a lot to do with his ankle and how it's slowly changed his throwing motion. So I think that Dak is a good pick here just because he's been taken too high. I didn't want to touch anybody at all that I thought was really injury prone. So after last year, I just didn't want to take a risk on him. What do you got, Terry?
So in regards to Brandon's pick, Justin Herbert, I really hope you're wrong because I did take him. However, I wouldn't say that I reached on him. I think I got him in the 10th round, which I think is probably pretty good value at that point.
That's fine.
But I'm not, that's one of the picks that I'm still a little uncertain on. The rest of my team I'm pretty good with, but I'm a little worried about him. But you never know. He could keep slinging it like he was last year. But there is that sophomore slump is certainly a possibility. As far as my pick, I'm on the same page with Paul. I took Dak. I've seen him being drafted a lot higher than I think he should be. And like he said, with him coming off the injury, getting paid a boatload of money, and then the new thing, the shoulder injury. You know, I feel like if all goes well and he can stay healthy, he certainly is going to put up good numbers. But there's a lot of worry out there that I think taking him a little high is troublesome. So could end up problematic for you in your league if you take him too early.
I think I did hear that he's going to start. I just think that the likelihood of him probably making it through the whole season healthy is going to be pretty slim. Now, I mean, if Dak is healthy, I mean, we saw last year that the numbers that he can put up in fantasy on that offense could be pretty nuts. Because before he got hurt, I mean, he was throwing up 400-yard games like it was nothing. So, I mean, granted, they were, flash in the pan type games, but still, I mean, that could win you some weeks right there. So, I mean, if he stays healthy, I think that's a definite possibility that they could do really well. If he can't stay healthy, I think that's the main thing there that we're looking at is that over the long haul of the season, if you don't have insurance, if you're drafting Dak, you're likely going to run into some problems.
I think it also depends on the size of your league. Like in a 10-team league, like the one that we're doing, there's going to be plenty of quarterbacks if you need to pick somebody up. But if you're playing in a bigger league, like 14, 16, I mean, even up to 20-team leagues, and you draft Dak, that is a lot of risk reward. So I hope you got a nice value in a much later round.
Absolutely.
Agree.
So running through. Oh, sorry, Terry. Do you have a comment there, bud?
No, I just said I agree.
Okay. I'm running up number 2 here on the running back list. I have for myself was Austin Eckler. I felt like for myself, another person that I'm really concerned with as far as injuries go. He missed 6 games last year. Somebody that I feel like can be dynamic, especially in PPR leagues when you're looking at, the ability to have runs and catches and being a big part of the offense. But I feel like the problem with Eckler is just that the ability, which is availability, is going to be a big problem for him. So I don't see that really changing for him where he's at this year. I just feel like that's going to be a huge risk, and I see him going super early. He went in the first round in our draft. And that is not, I would never want to draft a guy who missed 6 games in the previous season in the first round.
Yeah, I hear you there, and that's why I've been so hesitant on guys like Saquon, and even Christian McCaffrey, because even though if they're in, they're going to be beasts, but there's some risk reward there. So I think that Eckler's a solid pick there. I picked Leonard Fournette because I don't think he's all that great for one thing. Second, he got picked before Ronald Jones in our league, and I think that Ronald Jones is going to end up being the featured back. I think that a lot of people I think when it comes to fantasy, I'd say the majority of people don't do a ton of homework on it. They do a lot of name recognition. And Leonard Fournette, I mean, he was drafted in the first round, played for the Jags for a while, then came and did a Super Bowl run with the Bucks. So he's got some name recognition, and I think that is why he's being taken so early. But in a PPR league, he doesn't do a lot out of the backfield catching the ball. And I feel like most people end up playing PPR right now. I think it's kind of the hot ticket. So I think that there's a mistake.
I
And
think a lot of people forgot they brought Gio Bernard into that offense. Like, you got 3 different guys now. You had not only do you have Jones, who I think was the obvious number 1 before he got hurt last year, and then you had Fournette come in the playoffs and just torch. So it's that they have that was the last memory they have of him. But they don't remember that, oh yeah, over the offseason they picked up Gio, and now they have another guy that's going to eat snaps away from Leonard Fournette and away from that pass game, because that's where Fournette got a lot of that in the playoffs, was off of the pass game, those short passes. Now they're more than likely going to go to Geo.
yeah, no, that's a great point. That was the last thing I wanted to bring up was I think that people are enthralled because he was the feature back during the Super Bowl run.
Yeah, and to touch on your point with Fournette, he really wasn't the main focal point of the offense up until like the very end of the season. It was Ronald Jones was the feature guy for like the majority of the season. And then I think he got dinged up, and then kind of Fournette started getting more carries, and then he just kind of turned that in. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I don't think Fournette should be drafted in front of Ronald Jones. But my my pick for this one, the first one for running back I had is Saquon. I mean, we all know the guy's a beast, and when he's healthy, he's unbelievable. I just think there's a lot of factors kind of working against him. The other thing I'll also, before I get to that, but he was rated on ESPN. He was rated number 3 overall, which I think is way too high considering coming off of the injuries he had and also the team that he's on. And that's part of the reason for my choice of him is I don't see the Giants offensive line is much improved. And he also has um, a quarterback that stinks. So it's gonna be multiple angles that's gonna hurt him. And if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm game planning to take him away because I don't think that Daniel Jones can beat me.
I agree with that. The other thing, I think that Saquon is a lot like Zeke, and that if you look at it, his rookie year was amazing. His second year was a step down, and then his third year he gets injured and doesn't really do anything. But I feel like I just I can't take a person with a first round pick or a second. I don't think I can take a top 5 rounds with a guy who is coming off an injured season. So I personally wouldn't have touched McCaffrey. I think Saquon's a really good pick here just because he's coming off a huge injury.
I think if you can get Saquon late, it's going to be dependent upon your draft. Like for us, I know that he went pretty early, but if he's like chilling on the board in the third round or later, I feel like that would be an acceptable round to go after him.
Yeah, if he's still hanging out in the second round, then I think it's worth taking him then. But I don't think in like if you're in the top, if you're in like the top 8 picks, I think there's other guys there that are probably worth that pick over him.
The only thing that I might say is if you're running a keeper league, like what I want ours to be so that we can keep this going and have some consistency here. Saquon's not a terrible pick for first or second round in a keeper because if he's coming off and then you're getting a multi-year possible payout if he turns in something good this year.
Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion there. Just a quick shout out to our comments section. What's up, Mongoose? Thanks for tuning into the show, bud. Appreciate having you here. He said, we are greatly undervaluing Gio Bernard's mustache game. We really need to take that into consideration, and I do
I
agree.
apologize for that. It's a rookie move on our part.
I think he said they just randomized their draft order for Startup Dynasty. I think we randomized ours as well. Terry got fourth. I was fifth. Paul was last, unfortunately. Sorry about that, Paul. Um, and he's number 5 in the 14-team PPR Dynasty League. Man, good luck there, bud. That's going to be a tough one. I feel like it's. I want to do a keeper league for sure. I feel like that's definitely going to be intense, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so my running back number 2 on the list, kind of going into the comments section here. I think this is going to kind of depend a little bit on your league greatly. If you were doing a dynasty league, then I think I would change this pick probably for sure. But if you're not doing a dynasty league, I feel like it would be a waste if you went after Jonathan Taylor in the early rounds. Reason being is that, yes, he is young. I believe he's only 22 years old. The guy's a beast, but you're looking at him now sharing a recrowded backfield. Naeem Hines is going to be back. Marlon Mack, I believe, is back. They have a couple different guys there that are going to be eating away those carries away from him. So I would just say last year he had the benefit of dealing with a lot of guys who were injured in that backfield, which I think led to him getting some extra carries, which I do not believe will be the case likely for this year unless Carson Wentz gets everybody COVID. I didn't say that. But what do you guys think? Who did you have for your running back number 2?
Yeah, I almost took Jonathan Taylor, but yeah, I thought that you were right that because we had talked about it a little bit before that he's going to have a lot of things eating into his carries. I will admit that it was either my first or second pick because since I was last, I went 2 times in a row because we did a snake draft. So my first running back or second running back on here, but Aaron Jones on the Packers. I think that I mean, we talked initially about Dak, how he just got paid. Well, Aaron Jones just got paid a bunch of money by a team I didn't think was going to end up keeping him. But he's obviously a great talent, and you saw that last year when he was in his prove it year. But I just get worried about guys first year of a big contract that he might have kicked back a little bit. Um, the one thing that was nice and the way that I kind of tied it in was I got his backup in AJ Dillon, so that if he goes down with an injury or he's having an off time, then I can pair it that way. I got him pretty late, and I think that I got some value there. But Aaron Jones, I think, is just. I think that there's a bigger risk once you get those guys who just got paid.
Definitely. What about you, Terry?
So my second running back I had was David Montgomery. So he's kind of like in that like second tier of running backs with like say James Robinson, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, somewhere in there. I was seeing him getting taken ahead of some of those guys. Um, I just feel like he had a really good statistical season last year because they needed to generate offense some way. Um, and I just feel like people are drafting him based off of what he did last year, and then the projections when they now have Damian Williams in there as well. Tariq Cohen's always part of the mix, and he's gonna
Justin
take some
Fields
carries
at
when
running back.
correct. And then eventually, when the Bears come to their senses
You
and
just
put
said
him in,
correct.
Justin Fields is going to be running the ball a lot. So
Especially when they play the Packers. Like I'm in those two games, if he plays both the games against the Packers, I'm giving Justin Fields 300 yards of rushing.
but yeah, that's why I took him. I feel like his numbers are going to go down just because of the way the offense is going to run organically.
I think we didn't bring him up on one of the lists, but if you guys don't mind if I digress for just 2 seconds, Miles Sanders, I think, is one that I would probably watch out for super early because from all indications, this guy is super talented, obviously. But from everything I've heard, the Philadelphia fans have yelled at Doug Peterson for years about not running the ball. And from what I hear, Nick Sirianni is going to be even worse as far as running back by committee and just completely not. So the chances of seeing Miles Sanders having the ball 15, 21 times a game, I think are going to be pretty unlikely, especially when you see guys like Kenneth Gainwell and different guys that are going to be in our backfield now. Gainwell being a guy that our coaches have essentially drafted, that's their own guy. So I think you might see him get a little bit more shine, a little bit more flash, especially if Sanders struggles early, which from all indication, he's dropping everything out of camp, struggling with fumbles. So I would be hesitant about going after Miles Sanders early as much as I love him.
I completely agree. I took him in our league, I think. Yeah, but I got him in the fifth round. So I mean, that's good value. Yet he is projected as the 32nd overall player. I think he's probably going to get about 12 to 15 carries a game, but they're all going to be carries. He's not going to be touching the ball as far as receiving until he can show that he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which he's done a terrible job of in camp. He did it a few years ago. I don't know what happened, but we'll see. But yeah, I think he's primarily the runner, and then you're going to see Gainwell and Boston Scott be more of the receiving backs. So if you're in a PPR league, you're instantly losing some points there because he's going to come off the field in passing situations.
Yeah, I almost picked him, but I didn't want people to think I was just throwing a bunch of Eagles hate on the board here. So we'll move on to the next wide receiver. My wide receiver one. This is a guy that I think at wide receiver 2 or later could be acceptable. I think for myself, if I had him at like my flex guy or something, or maybe a bench guy I could bring on, I would feel a lot better about him. But that's Calvin Ridley. I think this is a guy that, although he kind of benefited a lot out of the trials and tribulations of Julio last year, and now Julio's gone, you see Kyle Pitts bringing it, going to be brought into the fold. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of other targets again that you're just going to see a lot of share in this offense until you get to see what kind of relationships people have and how things go. Because no matter what, just like we said about Daniel Jones earlier, Matt Ryan, and that was going to be my pick, but I'm like, it's too easy. That's like way too easy of a pick. So I don't think anyone's drafted Matt Ryan early. If you are, you probably ain't watching this show. So I just feel like for me, that would be something that I would keep an eye out for. What do you guys think?
This is the only one on your list that I really like strongly disagree with. I think that Calvin Ridley going to be the feature wide receiver. I think Kyle Pitts being there. There's not a lot of other like deep talent in the receiving room, so I think having Kyle Pitts, basically a wide receiver. I mean, he's a tight end in name only, but when you have two wide receivers like that, you're gonna have plenty of throws. I mean, Matt Ryan isn't great, but he's competent. He can throw the ball. So I think that Calvin Ridley is actually a pretty decent wide receiver one. Um, for
I've heard
mine,
a lot as well. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just
no,
wanted to
you're good.
retort. I've heard a lot as well that the new head coach for the Falcons is going to be a very run first head coach. So I think you're going to see that kind of change up a little bit as well with their offense. I think you'll see possibly a little bit more of a run first mentality with them than maybe you saw last year. So I'm kind of factoring that in as well.
I think that Calvin Ridley's too good for, even if they do turn into a run first team. I think he's the receiver that clearly gets the most targets, and then I think Kyle Pitts comes in second. But and I could obviously be wrong, but I just think that Calvin Ridley's too good to pass up on as a
I,
wide receiver one.
Another guy that didn't make the list, as far as I know, and sorry, Terry, I'm a terrible memory, so I'm not going to remember everybody on your list. But is Kenny Galladay, and that's another guy that I think is going to get a bulk of the targets for the Giants. But I don't think necessarily he's a good RB or wide receiver one. That's a guy that I'm going to or flex if at all. Which I didn't. I stayed away from him in our draft. He fell a little bit further down the board than I had anticipated. But I mean, that's a guy that I think when you have guys who are wide receiver ones, but they're on terrible teams, as Mongoose said in the comments section there, the Falcons are trash. It's a little hard for me to have a lot of faith that they're going to do super well.
I completely agree with you, but I think that Matt Ryan, you know my feelings on Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan is trash, but Matt Ryan is significantly better than the tight end named Daniel Jones out of the Giants. So I think that, like, yes, they're in similar situations, but I think that Calvin Ridley is going to benefit from a better quarterback than what Galladay has.
All right, I've stepped over you enough. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. This is what we're talking about, so I'm good with it.
Well, I real quick, because I won't go into it because Brandon touched on
Terry.
it as well. Calvin Ridley was my first choice as well, for many of the reasons that he just gave.
Yeah, that's fine. You guys can be wrong. That's allowed. For my pick here, I went pretty easy. I went with Jamar Chase, a guy that couldn't catch a cold right now, or the other C word. But he looks like a bust. And I mean, obviously, it's preseason, his rookie year, but it seems like pretty much every college player who decided to sit out the last year before their draft has not been doing well. So we had kind of talked about it a little bit when we were doing our draft, but it seems like they were trying to get the workouts in, show up at their pro days and at the combine and look good on paper, which is easy to do when you work out, but you're not always going to learn all those techniques and the things that the repetitions are actually going to get you. So
Terry, who is that combine giant that the Eagles took? The guy that just absolutely destroyed the combine and like was awful, like absolutely terrible at the NFL. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry, bud.
No,
on on the Eagles?
Yeah, on the Eagles.
Let me think. Go ahead.
If Ralph was here, he would remember. Go ahead, bud.
So I think it's easy to look good on paper, but when I mean you're coming out of college, you're still learning the game of football, and so I think that Jamar is someone that people are taking early because he was wide receiver of the year the last time you saw him on the field, but he sat out a year, and I think that is really going to show. Terry, who you got? That perplexed look of yours as you're trying to remember this Giants guy, or not Giants, Eagles, same thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't. Well, I had
Mike Mamula. Mike Mamula.
Oh, I thought you said receiver.
No. I just said Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said Calvin Ridley. I just, I actually think Pitts is going to get more targets than we think. I just think there's a lot of factors. Plus, he has been injured quite a bit before, so it's a little risky. I think with your first pick, obviously injuries can happen, but he has had multiple injuries. I think early on in his career. I think last year was the first year that he really had a full season. And the fact that Julio was out, he was the focal point. Now you're getting Pitts back in, who's going to take away a lot of those targets. And from what I've seen, he looks like the real deal. So I could imagine him getting even more as the season goes on. And I don't know. I just thought he was one of the wide receivers that I wouldn't trust as my wide receiver number one.
All right, we got two comments I want to hit in the comment section. First of which is Mongoose, if you believe that Matt Ryan sniffs the top 10 of NFL quarterbacks, I need some of what you're smoking, bro.
Who said top 10? I said he's
no,
not
not us. Mongoose said in the comments section that Matt
Okay.
Ryan is easily between number 9 and number 12 or 13, sorry, in the NFL. Bro, he's not sniffing the top 10. There's no way he's sniffing the top 10. With all the young talent that's in the league right now at quarterback, you are crazy if you think he sniffs the top 10. What do you guys think? Am I outlandish there?
I'm going to pull up all the starting quarterbacks.
All right, while you're doing that, let me go. You said somewhere between 9 and 13. How is that? 9 is into 10. It's 2. You're saying he's better than 2 other guys. It's already, I got a problem with that.
All
right.
So
Okay, you got an answer. Go ahead.
I know all right. So Deshaun is better than him. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm not going to include him, but every fourth week is better than Matt Ryan. Matt Stafford is going to be in front of Matt Ryan. Jameis might be. I'm not going to include that one though. This hurts, but I got to put Ben Roethlisberger in front of him. Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson. That's 5.
Easy. Patty Mahomes.
Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Dak Prescott is better than him. This hurts. Kirk Cousins is better than him. Justin Herbert is better than him. Kyler Murray is better than him. Patrick Mahomes. So we're at 14, and I'm just kind of running through a list real quick. So You think that he's top 10, you're psychotic.
All right. Let's get to the other one really quick, and then we can come back to Mongooses. So Blue Crew, what's up, bud? Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. So we have here half point PPR league, 12 team, super flex. Should I trade away Carson and Brandon Cooks for Josh Allen? My other quarterback is Brady. Other running back is Chubb, Mike Davis, Trey Sermon. What do you guys think?
Ooh. Having Brady, if you want to trade away Brady, because I think if you have Brady and Allen, you've got too much talent at quarterback. But I think that he's obviously a better starting quarterback. And Brandon Cooks, I don't think you're going to get a lot out of him because he's been bounced all over and has never really had any sustained success. So I wouldn't be afraid to get rid of both of them and then get Josh Allen and try to turn Tom Brady into something else.
I think that's a really good question there. I think it's tough because I don't know what the exact return would have to be on that just as of yet. Hang tight. I'm catching up on chat. There was a bunch at once. Thank you so much for subscribing, Blue Crew. I do very much appreciate it, bud. Let me just catch up here. Yeah, so you have super flex, so you can start 2 quarterbacks is basically what Blue Crew is saying.
Oh, okay. Then yeah. Then I would definitely do that because then you have Tom Brady and Josh Allen as your two starting quarterbacks. I would, without a doubt, do that.
Yeah, so because we were talking about possibly doing super flex in our league, but I just thought it's a lot to change because my draft strategy has been non super flex up to this point. I feel like that's a big difference. But yeah, man, I feel like if it's super flex and you're starting both, if I could do Allen or Carson, and all I really have to sacrifice is Brandon Cooks, I would do that all day.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, so let me catch up. So Mongoose doesn't agree about Big Ben, but and or Kirk Cousins being better than Matt Ryan.
Kirk Cousins sucks, but he's a solid 10 to 12th quarterback. And I think that Matt Ryan is washed. Yes, Ben Roethlisberger is washed, but a washed up Ben Roethlisberger, as we saw last year, can still take you into the playoffs. Matt Ryan has missed the playoffs how many years recently?
I think the only one that I would argue is Big Ben. I think right now I would take Matt Ryan over Big Ben, but I think all the other ones that you named, I would take them over Matt Ryan to start if it was this year. All right, so we can catch back up. So next one I have on the list is a wide receiver two, right? So my wide receiver two for me, this is a guy that to me is near and dear to my heart because I've drafted him. I can't tell you how many times and have been frustrated. I can't tell you how many times by him. So, I mean, hey, you can do this. You can take this ride if you should so please. But if you love the roller coaster that is fantasy football, then go for it. If you don't and you want consistency, I suggest you don't bark up this tree. And that is Mike Evans. Now, is Mike Evans great? Is he flashy? Yes. Is that offense just absolutely jam packed? Yes. The other thing is, my biggest thing with all of this, I see Mike Evans get drafted way early in drafts. I'm seeing Antonio Brown go way late in drafts. That blows my mind. I got Antonio Brown super late in our draft. And I think that it's something that people are discounting the fact that now they've had an entire offseason and they're getting ready to go into the second year. I think AB is going to eat even more into Mike Evans' side of this offense. And you're going to have less games where Mike Evans gets that one catch that happens to be a touchdown that just saves the fact that he gets 7 points for you. So just keep in mind, is there going to be weeks that he does great things for you? Yes. But there will be weeks that he will literally get you between 1 and 3 points. And it's like basically every other week. If you want to ride that ride, great. But Mike Evans is getting drafted before Chris Godwin, which is crazy. That happened in our league, I think. And I've seen him going way, way, way before AB. So just wait for AB. Go ahead.
I'm with you. You took everything I was going to say about Godwin and AB about Mike Evans, but yeah, I had Mike Evans a couple of years ago, and every third week was great, but those 2 weeks in between sometimes were pretty rough. For mine, I went with Michael Thomas, and part of that was because he's going to miss like the first. I think he's on the physically unable to perform, so he's out at least the first 6 weeks, and then after that, I mean, it really depends because he doesn't seem to have a good relationship with Sean Payton. So maybe that injury gets prolonged. Maybe he gets traded. Maybe he doesn't come on much this season at all, but he's still going pretty early.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
have my
Mongoose is still going on a
sorry.
trail here about Matt Ryan. So, dude, we'll get back to it, but you can't say that Matt Ryan is top 10 in the NFL. We very easily made that point, and we can move on. Go ahead, Terry. Sorry, bud.
For me, I had my wide receiver two was Amari Cooper. Um, for a couple of reasons. I mean, he's a good player when he's on the field. He generally puts up pretty good numbers. Um, he does get hurt a lot. Um, and I feel like CD Lamb is going to become the star of that offense. I think he's gonna really take the next step this year. Um, so with guys that are in that same class where Amari is, like in like the mid to late 30s or so, I mean, I would take a Chris Godwin over him. Probably take a Thielen. Lockett, Deontay Johnson. I would think maybe some of those guys before him, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like the injury issues come up every year with him. And when he's great, he's great, but he's definitely not on the field enough. So that's why I would pass on him for someone else.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot about CD Lamb really coming on in the offseason, and I think that might start to eat into that a little bit. I'm pretty positive, I could be wrong, that Amari's already had some knee issues coming into this season. So that's kind of kept him off of the field a bit. So I think that, again, availability is a huge thing in fantasy football. So I just think that's definitely something that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at those things. So I think if you're looking at Amari as like a 2 or 3 in your fantasy options, you already have a solid number one, then that's cool. I wouldn't have too much of a problem with that, depending on where that lies. But I would probably stay away if I could in the first couple rounds for sure from Amari. All right, so then let's wrap up here. We got tight ends next. Yep. So surprisingly enough, on my list for tight ends is Dallas Goddard. Now, the reason as to why I put Dallas on the list isn't because he's not talented, isn't because he's not good at a tight end, it isn't because I don't think he'll get you points, is because I think for some reason I see him rated way higher than I think he was going to end up being. The reason being is because Zach Ertz didn't end up going anywhere. Unless he completely falls off a cliff and ends up being the tight end 2 or tight end 3 on the roster, which I don't see happening, then I don't see the reason why Dallas Goddard is evaluated that high when it comes to fantasy. So just keep that in mind. Not saying he's not talented, not saying he's not a great player, and I don't not like him. I just don't think that he's good for a high draft for a tight end for fantasy. They have him in like the top, I think, 5 to 7 in tight ends, and I think there's other guys that you could just wait on and probably get more value out of.
Yeah. Mongoose, yes, I do hate Matt Ryan. I'll openly admit that, but he's not a top 10 quarterback. I think that's pretty easy to see. He had one fraudulent MVP and lost the Super Bowl in which he led 28-3. Anyway, I think that the lesson for tight ends is just stay away from the Eagles tight end room, because I went with Zach Ertz on mine because I saw him getting taken pretty high. And I think that him and Dallas are going to split it. And unless they do a New England type system where they play a lot of 2 tight end sets, I just think that the way that you guys are saying that Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts are going to take catches away from each other, I think that's really going to happen with Dallas Goddard and Zach Ertz. So I just would stay away from Philly tight ends or any situation in which you can't get one of the. I feel like if you can't get one of the top 4 or 5 tight ends, and I feel like those are fairly easy to identify. They, I mean, they're all pretty much the same. So I wouldn't take any, but if you get either one, fine. Just don't take them early, because I've seen them both taken early.
The tight end I had was Robert Tanyan. Um, saw him get taken a little too early in a couple of drafts. Maybe ahead of some of the guys that are in that 4 to 6 range. I know he had a good season last year. He seems like he has a hookup with Rodgers, and he's working out with George Kittle in the offseason. So I'm not saying that he couldn't be a surprise pick, but I think his values later on. I certainly wouldn't suggest taking him ahead of a guy like Hawkinson or Pitts. I think those guys, even Logan Thomas, I think is a tight end that's kind of flying under the radar a bit. I think he's going to get a lot more catches than people think, especially with Fitzpatrick there in Washington now. Even like Noah Fant had like a really strong season last year, and that was with Drew Lock playing pretty poorly. So Teddy B's out there. He's another guy, but I feel like there's maybe reaching on him in a little bit. You could probably wait and get him later. And that would probably be a good value tight end for you if you need somebody that's, after all those, mid-tier kind of guys are gone.
I think that last year was kind of the perfect storm type year for him because the Packers, I mean, they really had Devontae Adams, and then it was a revolving door of injuries and people getting picked up off the practice squad who a lot of them aren't even on the roster this year. Um, so I just think he had a really good year last year because he benefited from a lot of injuries and lack of talent on the Packers wide receiving core. So if you can get him late, fine. But especially in our draft, he went what, like the 6th round or something, like where you can still get a lot of really talented people. I feel like no one else had them on their radar, and yeah, that's a big reach.
Yeah, I think just looking at what happened in our draft, I mean, people have such vastly different fantasy football strategies, and I don't really know where they kind of amalgamate them from a lot of times. Like, so I mean, well, we're getting towards the end here. We just basically had flex guys left, and two of us took Will Fuller, which I don't even know if people will make that mistake out there. But hey, don't draft Will Fuller. Uh, one of the other things that we were going to talk about that I wanted to kind of bring up is like, all right, so if you're drafting, okay, we're doing a PPR league. We have a 10-team league. Other teams might have more, or other leagues might have more than that. I've one of the first things that I learned as a golden rule as far as fantasy goes is like when you're drafting a quarterback early, it's basically a waste because no matter what, you're going to have guys that might end up being guys that can get you points every single week that you may not even know or they're going to be the starters yet. Could be that same way with running back or tight end or what have you. So it's tough, I feel like, when you go and you do those, like, okay, I'm going to go get Patrick Mahomes in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Like, I don't really know that that's needed. Like, yeah, somebody's going to go grab that dude, but let them make that mistake. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's I think it's difficult when you have someone like Patrick Mahomes in the offense that Kansas City runs because unless he gets hurt or like Tyreek gets hurt, he's going to put up a lot of points. But there's a lot of quarterbacks who can get you a lot of points too. I think the part where people go wrong is they try to get the best who they think the best NFL player is. And the best NFL player often isn't the best fantasy football player. I mean, let's look at some of the quarterbacks who are top quarterbacks the last few years in fantasy. You have Ryan Tannehill on that list because he's got some rushing ability. If he scores every once in a while, and he's a fine passer, he's not great, but I just I feel like reaching there, there's so many other positions in which you can choose to win the battle against your opponent that quarterback I think doesn't have to be one of them because everyone's going to go, not everyone, but a lot of people are just going to go for name recognition. Everyone recognizes the quarterback names. The NFL prioritizes quarterbacks. They have since Tom Brady got the tuck rule for that Super Bowl. Um, but I think you're right in drafting a quarterback too early. Just it can cause you a lot of headache because either you're going to miss out on a really good running back or a great wide receiver or someone who can get you something that you need that you're not going to be able to find while everyone else is taking other top tier quarterbacks who aren't Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers.
I still think even with super flex leagues, because I was thinking about that while you were talking, is about like, I wonder if that would have, if I'd feel differently if we did a super flex. There's still 32 quarterbacks. I mean, there's not 32 great running backs, like fantastic running backs that are going to get me points every week. There aren't 32 fantastic wide receivers. Like, I feel like those things are way more harder or way harder to get than getting the quarterbacks where you can find serviceable quarterbacks that will get you. Yeah, no, Yogurt, this is not where we talk about soccer, bud. It's probably the only sport we don't really chat about ever. Um, Paul and I might play cricket one day in the video game. We might throw that up on the channel as for fun shit one day. But anyway, um, I just don't feel like I feel like you're just wasting draft capital if you're doing that in the first like 4 rounds. Like you can pick or choose whether you evaluate running backs or wide receivers more. And yeah, you'll have the random freak like Travis Kelsey, that might go in the first couple rounds that I'm probably not going to have too much of a problem with. Maybe Pitts after we find out how much of a role he really plays in this offense. But
Keeper.
but I feel like with these other ones, it's a lot to have to deal with to come back from if you really whiff on that quarterback and you drafted them really early.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Yoger said, "Good. I hate soccer." Perfect. Well, is there any other? I know we were talking about possibly going back through our draft a little bit that we just had. Again, PPR league. I think one of the things that I was just kind of surprised about, we already talked about two of them, seeing like Austin Eckler and Jonathan Taylor go early. Travis Kelsey went in the first round. I'm not overly surprised about that. Um, did you guys have any ones that you specifically wanted to call out that you were surprised about from our draft just to kind of wrap up tonight?
I did. I wanted to touch on the last pick of the draft that I got. I went last, so I had the last pick in the draft because we had 17 rounds. I got Deshaun Watson with the last pick. Deshaun Watson is going to play football this year. If he wasn't going to play football this year, the commissioner would have had him on some sort of an exempt list. He wouldn't be on a 53-man roster. I don't care that he hasn't been traded. I don't care about any of that because I got Lamar Jackson. He's going to be just fine. But with the last pick, I think that if he does anything and I need him, then I think that I got a ton of value there with the last pick. I think a bunch of people forgot about him because ESPN projected him to be like, I think it was like the 656th best player or something like that. So I had to search for him and I didn't even think about it till right before my last pick. But yeah, I couldn't believe that no one took a risk on him and I got lucky.
So I'll say what I think is a lucky one for me. Let me see here. I think for me, I was happy to I got Matt Stafford in the 9th round.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm happy about that one. But I think for my reach, the one that I think is going to be tough is Jalen Waddle. I got him in the 7th round. So that was a little bit of a reach, but I think possible guy that could take over that offense and seeing him come back from that injury, like if he comes back really good from that injury, woo, because in college, man, that Alabama offense, it was mostly Waddle. And then once Waddle left, then Smith kind of rocketed into his ascendance, if you will. So I feel like that could be a possibility there.
I'm still super pissed off that Alabama played him in the national championship game. I just remember looking at him and you could see just by the look that he had, like pre-snap motion, that he was not right. So I was super pissed they put him on the field. Like, you're a kid. He's not getting paid anything. That was super messed up.
Then he would be now.
Did you see the kid who left Texas signed a 1.4? Oh,
$1.4 million name, image, likeness deal, and he's like a freshman.
Yes, he's an incoming freshman, and he didn't win the starting job, but he just got 1 point. Are we gonna see these like top players make first round pick money? Is that kind of where we're getting, and quick?
Oh, it's going to be, it's either going to get really obscene really fast and then they're going to back off of it, or it's just going to shoot through the roof.
I think it's going to shoot through the roof because college boosters, man, they love their football.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of which, we can wrap up unless Terry had a quick thought, we can wrap up the show on our college football. What do they call it? Week 0, which I thought was weird. I got to watch the Nebraska game, saw a little bit of the late game in Alcorn State. I missed that other game on ESPN, though. What was that game? The all black uniforms. You guys were telling me about it. I missed that game, though. I heard it was a blowout.
Oh, man. Do you see the meme that they signed Cam Newton?
Yeah, I did. What was the name of that?
Bishop Sycamore.
That's right, Bishop Sycamore. That was crazy, man. So ESPN got duped. I didn't get to read all into it yet, but I saw some dude blew his ACL out and he was like 26 years old or something. And, like just all kind like they took L's in several ways on that day, but they
There's
did it on
just
national television, so I guess that's a win.
Is it though? Like,
there's
the 20s.
so much to process after all this stuff that's come out about that. It's just crazy. And
Yeah.
they got stomped out by a bunch of high school kids, and most of these guys are like in their mid 20s.
Most of these guys are like JUCO guys, so like guys who were talented but didn't have the grades or had something, didn't have the attitude, didn't have something. But I mean, they're to the point where they probably would have ended their NFL careers and retired. So how were they playing on the same field as high school? Did the referees not say, "Hey, this guy has a full beard," and then look at the guy at IMG Academy and be like, "Look, this guy can't shave yet. You've got a full beard, and you look like you might have shanked someone in prison at some point.
Allegedly.
Maybe this game shouldn't be going on."
But yeah, so if you haven't heard about that, definitely look that up. What was the name of it one more time, Terry?
Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore. Look up
Yeah.
Bishop Sycamore,
Look up
ESPN.
BS.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that you'll be thoroughly entertained, if nothing else. And I'll try to see if we can look into it a little bit more. Maybe we can cover it a little more in depth. Maybe we can do a little mini doc for the Muff Punt podcast. We'll have a little fun with that. But I had a lot of fun tonight, guys. Thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. We're able to go down through our draft busts of 2021. We clearly had some contention in the comment section, which was a lot of
Matt
fun
Ryan
for me.
sucks.
But I think if nothing else, like sports is very much like politics, where you could have extremely different opinions on people and where they're ranked and how good or bad or trash they may or may not be. But that's why I said if you're going to argue that he's anywhere within the top 10, I think you're wrong. And he conceded that, nope, it was more like 13 to something. So I think we won. Make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe. Thank you, Blue Crew, for the subscription tonight. I do very much appreciate it. We have hit 91, if my math is not off, which is super flipping awesome. We need to get to 100, folks. Help us out. Make sure you subscribe, hit like, leave a comment down below. Each one of those things helps us out tremendously. We're going to start live streaming this every single week the best that we can throughout the season, and we'll see how everything goes. So I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your night, okay? Any closing words, gentlemen? You good?
Matt Ryan sucks.
All right.